You're listening to Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, and a certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. This week is Thanksgiving, and all we can all think about is food. So let's talk about food in our training this week. Do we really need to use food to teach grooming behaviors? So I really like using food when I can, but I think that a lot of dog training doesn't take into account that in a grooming setting, that can be a big problem sometimes. So if you're in a grooming room and you have multiple dogs there, you don't necessarily know if any of these dogs have food aggression. And while it might be helpful for the dog that's on your table, the next dog to get up on your table may be an entirely different guy than he usually is if your table smells like peanut butter or cheese or has little crumbs all over it. And it's a little bit different like in a veterinary setting. I think that we're more likely to use food because there's no other animals in the room and that room gets cleaned out and, disinfected. But in a grooming setting, the dogs are all in the room with us. So a lot of places won't allow food. But if you remember what we talked about with positive reinforcement means that we're encouraging a behavior by adding something. And that doesn't have to be food. That can be petting and praise and a little bit of silly and a chance to, get to play a little bit with us. We don't need to rely on food as heavily as we tend to in modern training. And it's not about wanting to skip the food. I mean, like I said, I like using food when I can, but to be open-minded that for many dogs going into a grooming setting, they won't be able to use food there. And for safety reasons, some pretty legitimate safety reasons. And also, a lot of dogs won't take food in that setting. So if they're on a grooming table, a lot of dogs won't take food on a grooming table. Puppies usually will, but older dogs often have learned that that's just not playtime. There are a lot of things that an older dog might not do on a table. Like some of the older dogs won't lie down, even if I want them to give them a break. They're like, nope, 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 nope. We know what we're supposed to do on a table. We'll go stand up. We don't take cookies. So, but be thinking about ways to motivate dogs so that we can still encourage what we want and build the skill set that we're looking for. And that might be petting and praise and, maybe a little squeaky toy, things like that, that we can have some enjoyment with them, but not necessarily rely as heavily on food. Now, one of the things that I think gets missed too is that when a dog lives in how do I want to word this? I think I'm going to word it as a I do something, you give me a cookie economy. That can create some big problems. I've worked with a couple of dogs that by the time you get to like a third toe, they're like, you have touched 3 of my toes and haven't given me a cookie yet. So sometimes that can be really hard. Now, as a groomer, if the owner tells me he gets a cookie for everything he does or for everything that I do to him, oh, okay, great. Now I know. Now I'm able to accommodate that unless I'm working someplace that doesn't allow cookies, which, I mean, I'm self-employed house caller, so that doesn't really apply to me personally, but I've worked some places where that wouldn't be able to happen. You wouldn't be able to just bring out some cookies. But to make sure that we're keeping in mind that the training goal is calm and cooperative, not necessarily calm and cooperative for one toe, one cookie, second toe, second cookie. and But to kind of break away from the need for long-term training with treats. So if you are working on things at home or you're working on things in a training setting to be preparing for a grooming setting or for a veterinary setting, start off with the treats if that's what works, but kind of fade them out a little bit or make it a longer duration or do more things like all 4 paws before a treat and build up to less need for the food because sometimes that's going to be the longer term goal. Now, sometimes we're using food as a distraction. I'm kind of in betweeny on this one. And let me tell you why. Because sometimes what we're doing is we're putting out something to lick for a dog who is quite stressed, and it's not actually lowering their stress, and it's not actually helping them be better. It's just food. And sometimes we're actually just giving them food while they're stressed out and misbehaving. Well, I'm going to call it misbehaving, even though they aren't being intentional about it. But while they're doing something we don't like, they're not performing to the goal that we've set. So we're giving them food with no context. I'm okay with distracting a dog if they are consenting to what we're doing. And I don't mean to sound all new agey granola crunchy, but it's different than giving them food while we sneak up on them, or while we still continue to force it, or while there's still a fight happening. Sometimes, you have a dog that's licking food and they're still growling and turning on and freaking out. Well, it used to happen to me. It doesn't happen to me anymore. This isn't the way I do things, but you have food out and they're freaking out, but they're eating food in between. And that kind of distraction isn't helpful for anything. It's kind of creating a different conditioned emotional response. Like, I'm really mad and peanut butter tastes good. But if I see peanut butter, I start looking at you really suspicious. Why are you taking out the peanut butter? Oh God, it's nail trim time. So it doesn't help our situation. But if you are using a distraction with a dog who is consenting, I kind of see that as, so a human example of that. There are times where, I can't watch the needle go into my own arm when I'm getting blood drawn. And I'll be like, okay, great. I'm right here. I'm going to let you do this. But I look up and like, oh, hey, so is that a picture of your son? Talk to me. Let's get distracted. Whoo, yeah, what was on TV last night, But that's different than, hey, look, that's a picture of a kid. Poke, see, it didn't hurt. And I think that those two things are so very different. So if we're using treats for a consenting distraction, then that means that we're still telling the dog, hey, this is what I'm doing. And are you okay with it? So, I'm holding your foot. All right, are you ready? And if a dog gives me the slight wiggle, I'm going to let him go. Not walk off my table, but I'm going to loosen it up or let his foot down and try again. And I might distract him with cookies or something to lick, but it has to be working toward the goal that we want. And another example of using treats, I was at a customer's house today, and as we were working with her pup, she noticed him getting a little bit worried and silly, and I calmed him down again. But we were realizing he was getting a little bit silly. It was just an endurance run that it was going longer than he was really kind of mature enough to handle. So she said, oh, can I give him some treats? I'm like, yeah. But the timing on those have to be right. So I had to make sure that she was bringing an awareness to, is he doing something right? Oh, now I'll give you a treat. But how often do we only bring the treats out once a dog has started getting wiggly? And I want you to be aware of that. Is the dog getting wiggly? And then we say, hey, let's try some Cheese Whiz. Let's try the squeeze cheese. And that sort of tells the dog that wiggling was pretty effective, right? I mean, if we wanted to encourage wiggling, what might we do? Hey, you're wiggling. Look, I brought cookies. Look, I brought some squeeze cheese. If we were accidentally trying to teach them to be wiggly, we might present treats only when they're wiggly. And that's why it doesn't work. When what we're trying to do is help them to be calm, then the treats need to come out when they're being calm. If we're doing it right, the treat becomes something pleasant while they are behaving the way that we're looking for them to behave, for the goal that we're setting. And so when we're looking toward a goal, then treats are a wonderful tool. But so is praise, so is petting, so is backing off, so is giving them a break. There are lots of ways that we can encourage. But keep in mind when you're doing your training process, groomers don't have a third hand to just give tons and tons of treats. So it's not going to be something very easy to use. And treats can be unsafe. I have one of my dogs that I'm pretty sure if he got up on a table that smelled like peanut butter from the last dog, would be very overstimulated. I would be able to calm him down because he knows how to be good when he's overstimulated. But if he were not my dog, the same guy in another house, you know, I could see him becoming aggressive about the fact that the table smelled like peanut butter. Not aggressive with people, but any other dog that walked by. You know, he's not at that point right now, but he used to be. So when we look at that, our average Joe bringing their dog in, we don't know if these dogs have food aggression issues. And we don't really know if they're going to be very different if we bring out some cheese or something. And we have to worry about allergies. So there are lots of things going on in a grooming shop with a group of dogs and watching other dogs get cookies, just some things to think about if you're coming up with a training plan. And for groomers to think, all right, if you have treats and you like giving treats and you find that that works for you and it's safe in your shop, cool, treats can be great. But make sure that you're giving them for the things that you like or progress toward the things that you like. Because we want to build a good behavior. We want to build the thing that we want to see. And that's how positive reinforcement works. Adding something to increase the likelihood of our target behavior. And that's where treats can be handy, but also other types of rewards. In fact, I think a lot of people don't realize this, but if you're trying to calm a dog down and your target behavior is for them to be calm, getting all amped up when they get amped up encourages them to be amped up. So I know it's tech talk, right? Amped up. But if you've got a dog who's being really, really wiggly and you're like, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it. Would you stop? Oh my God, would you stop? Even if it's kind of a playful, like, oh, you're driving me crazy, Sparky, knock it off. That encourages a lot of dogs. So that would actually be positively reinforcing wiggly. So positive reinforcement doesn't mean cookies, one of the big myths, and it doesn't always mean that you are working toward a goal of your own. Sometimes you're accidentally encouraging things that you don't want. Thanksgiving's also a time to think about the things that you're thankful for. And man, I am so thankful for my customers. These little dogs who have taught me so much over the years. And I'm really thankful that I get to do a job that I really love because, man, I love training. I love grooming. The behavior side of this is fascinating, as well as making pretty trims. But I've got to say, I was talking with a friend of mine who also started grooming in the early 90s. We both started grooming in the early 90s. And I am so thankful for the educational opportunities out there for us now. Because it used to be you had one seminar if you were lucky, like once a year there was a trade show you might be able to go to. And we get podcasts, we can get online and discuss things on Facebook groups, we can look at YouTube videos, we can video chat with each other. And this whole industry is so much more interesting when we all get a chance to talk about it. So I'm thankful for all of you, for people who are listening, for my colleagues, for other trainers, for other groomers, for people who are making some headway in this world and teaching us all. Because, it's pretty fascinating. We live in interesting times. For any of you out there who are looking for some one-on-one help, we have these wonderful devices in our pockets, these phones that we can do live video with each other. I can definitely set up a lesson with you with the dog that you're having trouble with right there on your table and be able to guide you through some of this stuff. Definitely reach out and let me know. I am at Chrissy@happycritters.net. Certainly you can find me through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook group. And we can definitely set up times to work on these things together, because you might be surprised how much I can do for you live, where we're actually looking at each other, being able to observe what you're seeing, helping guide you, or even showing you on a dog over here on this end of video. So there are ways for us to help each other. There are ways to learn this from a distance.